Another one. Look at all this garbage. So on this one, man, there were so many things on this one. This was probably the more complicated one out of the group that I've done so far. So it wasn't so much physical damage, it was just tracking things down that was the issue here. I posted on the thread earlier that one of the big problems I was having with this board was that it wouldn't boot consistently with key writing, but I could get it to boot Phoenix ROMs pretty consistently. So I got this key writing set up here with a 75 ohm resistor on the clock line, which helped with key writing a little bit, but the issue then was that the game would boot with garbage, like pure garbage graphics, like nothing, no audio. Obviously the game code wasn't working, but it was just garbage on the screen. Well, it turns out that the problem that was causing the garbage boots was the PAL at 10H and 9H. These were in sockets, which I think I have. I still have them over here somewhere. Well, yeah. Here's one of them. These were in sockets that were badly corroded. And I found that if I pressed down on these two PALs while booting the board, I could get it to boot a lot more consistently. So what I ultimately did is just desoldered the sockets and soldered the PALs directly into the board. Because on most CPS2B boards, these aren't socketed anyway, so I figured there would be no point in leaving them socketed. And as soon as I soldered these directly in and eliminated the sockets, this board boots every time, no problems. So that solves that mystery. But yeah, there's a lot of work here. There's a lot of dead traces underneath the DL1927, but this one, I didn't pull this one off like I did on the first one, because I didn't feel like it. That's basically all it comes down to. I didn't feel like it. I figured that the damage would be limited enough that I could just patch anything that was missing here, which is exactly what I did. Lots of vias needed to be repaired. And then, of course, the LS245s were destroyed. I mean, can't really see them. There are no pads on the top of this LS245 here, and the majority of these pads are gone too. The LS245s were actually missing their pins. These two here were missing the top row of pins entirely, so I had to pull new LS245s to replace these from a donor board. But yeah, that's all the work that went into this one. Wasn't super complicated. I mean, it was basically, once I figured out the booting issue, it was just a matter of tracking down graphics issues. The graphics bus is where you find a lot of problems with, like, sprites. That seems to be my experience so far. Sprite problems, you oftentimes find the issues in the graphics bus area, so that's the communication between the DL1927 and the 2027 and the DL1525, the CPU. If you, a lot of times with battery damage in this area, you'll lose pins of the graphics bus, so the connection between the CPU and the DL2027 going to the 1927, that's where you'll lose it. So the 1927 won't be connected to the graphics bus, and the communication happening over that bus, I don't really know the hardware well enough to explain what it does, but it seems to be related to sprites. So whenever you have sprite issues, it's usually I've found that it tends to be some floating pins on the DL1927 in the graphics bus area. Also, if you have really chunky, pixelated, blocky sprites instead of having like full resolution, it seems to be that CN2 carries some address lines for the graphics on the B pins, and a lot of the times I've found that this row of pins here, the graphics addresses that go up into the LS245s there, oftentimes affect the what am I trying to say? They seem to affect the sprite layer. So that's an area to check continuity from CN2 to the LS245s, and then also, of course, check activity on the LS245s coming from the CPU. But that's pretty much all the advice I can give at this point. This board is very dirty. I'm going to run it through my ultrasonic cleaner, but you can see I reflowed basically everything, cleaned lots of corrosion. This entire bottom section of this board was nasty from battery damage. I assume this board was propped up with this side facing down, and the battery exploded and it leaked all through here. But anyway, it's up and running and fully functional again, so that's that.